Right now on the National Weather Desk, historic flooding. Heavy rainfall sparks massive flooding across Vermont and New York, closing roads and threatening communities.
This is the new normal.
Too much rain. How a wet summer is taking a toll on tourist season in Maine.
Right now, most of our beaches are underwater.
Long, hot summer. The impact the brutal heat is having on wildlife.
Water is just such a life source for them.
Ready to launch. How a new weather satellite will improve future forecasting.
The cost is worth the lives it protects.
And the role artificial intelligence could play in forecasts.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Streets across Vermont this morning looked like this, like rivers. And once again, quiet creeks have roaring rapids after more than 8 inches of rain triggered massive flooding. This morning, a dam near the capital of Montpelier has less than 6 feet of remaining storage space. Now, this was a scene right here. You're about to see it. It's a common one. Roads and parking lots covered in water. When the water recedes, it exposes the debris left behind. Plenty of people have been rescued from their cars, and many rivers are not expected to crest until later today. And here are really 2 good images of how big the flooding actually is. This is the river Quechee, Vermont, looked like yesterday, and this is what it looks like right here on a typical day. The pictures were taken just on the other side of the river. Here's another before and after of the West River in southern Vermont. Laura Guire has more on the historic Northeast flooding.
This is the new normal.
New York State back in the epicenter of extreme weather just days after savage July 4th storms. The governor there mobilizing resources and declaring a state of emergency in Orange County, where 1 woman died after being swept away by fast-moving floodwaters. In West Point, New York, many roads have turned into rivers, with rainfall levels there being called once in a millennium. Forecasters predict up to 2 inches per hour could fall in some areas through Monday.
This is devastating. This used to be a stream, and now it's a roaring river.
Many residents in New Hampshire and Vermont can only watch helplessly as rushing water ravages property.
It's not just the initial damage, it's the wave, the second wave, and the third wave. And we're trying to anticipate that.
Well, I just watched my car just swim away.
In Reading, Pennsylvania, a daily rainfall record set in 1952 was shattered by 1.5 inches, and millions of people remain under severe weather alerts in the region through Tuesday morning. New York's governor blames a broader issue for the floods and says all levels of government must work together to address it.
How we can stand up and using every bit of our power, mobilizing to fight the ravages of climate change, because, again, these are unprecedented weather events that keep hitting us over and over and over again.
Well, the intense rainfall also brought flooding to portions of western New York, specifically the Finger Lakes region. Stephanie Joseph is in Canandaigua, south of Rochester, with these details.
Cleanup efforts underway across Ontario County after Sunday's flash flooding.
With the amount of water that came down, I think it even exceeded our 100-year rainfall.
The city of Canandaigua bore the brunt of it. The storm made some roads impassable, wiped out power to dozens of residents, and left many homeowners like George Inslee with plenty to clean up.
It looks like a bomb went off. I lost everything in the basement. A $500 brand new dryer. It's covered with mud, got mud inside, the washer's destroyed.
George Inslee has lived on West Gibson Street for 45 years. He says Sunday's torrential rains and flooding is the worst he's seen. Ryan Schmier agrees.
In the 20 years that I lived there, I've never seen it get as high as it did.
The floodwaters forced his mother out of her home for now. She, along with several others, now playing a waiting game to determine the extent of the damage.
I can expect a few days of trying to dry everything out, and then time after that to figure out what's actually broken and needing to be replaced. So it's going to be a long road ahead.
Well, it's been a very rainy summer in Maine. In June, it rained 22 of 30 days, and all that water is having an impact on the busy summer tourism season. Portland reporter Mel Meyer has details.
Right now, most of our beaches are underwater, so the campers aren't out there, and the kayakers and tubers have stayed off the river.
The fire department's chief is watching the rising water closely. He's also the emergency management director.
We're monitoring National Weather Service forecasting for our rivers and streams to make sure that we're kept in the know.
This is a big change from last year when they were dealing with high fire danger and concerns about wells running out of water.
We've had to shift gears and look at our preparedness measures to make sure that we are ready for flooding events.
To that end, they've been doing more water rescue trainings. The police department has 3 boats, should they be needed.
The batteries are all charged, they're gassed up, our emergency throw ropes and stuff, everything's in the boats ready to go.
Well, the threat of severe weather continues today for portions of the Northeast, and there's also a risk for severe weather in the plains and also the Midwest. Meteorologist Brian Vandergraft is here. He's monitoring the systems for us. What do you got?
Well, I would tell you what, Angela, we continue to keep an eye to the Northeast because obviously, as we've seen the video from the beginning of the show, portions of the Northeast from Vermont specifically reeling from those flooding effects yesterday. Still a marginal risk. That's a low risk for flooding to continue today. Then tomorrow, the region starts to dry out. But unfortunately, as we head toward Thursday, look at this. From Syracuse to Albany, right from Burlington, right on down through the state, they're looking at a slight risk of more flooding on Thursday. Not good to an already soaked ground. And then through portions of the west, take a look from Glendive, Montana to Rapid City, South Dakota, over to Sioux City and Des Moines. They have a severe threat for the afternoon. We're talking not tornado threat this time, but damaging wind gusts in excess of 70 miles per hour and hail potentially up to 2 inches. The severe threat will then shift south and east as we head through tomorrow. We'll stay on top of it. Angela?
All right, thanks, Brian. It's been 18 years in the making, and billions of dollars later, a 4th and final weather satellite meant to protect the United States is actually finished. Iowa meteorologist Nick Stewart went to Colorado to get a look at the new spacecraft ahead of his final tests.
And liftoff of NOAA's GOES-R.
In 2016, the first in a series of 4 next-generation weather satellites was sent to orbit, changing the way forecasters have been able to see and predict the weather. This new generation added 3 times more data, coming in at 4 times the resolution, 5 times faster than the previous weather satellites.
One of the greatest, human achievements, meteorology speaking, I should say, in many, many decades.
Greg Hevener is the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Boulder, Colorado. In his tenure working for the NWS, he has used the life-saving data from GOES to forecast everything from East Coast nor'easters to fast-moving wildfires. In 2017, less than a year after the first launch, the new timely data helped forecasters and first responders in ways beyond knowing where Category 4 Hurricane Harvey was making landfall, saving many lives.
We were in communication with Rockport area emergency manager. They had about 150 people who did not evacuate. We were using both satellite as well as the radar data to help determine exactly how much time they had in the eye to make the rescues, and then when they had to get back into shelter before the east side of the eye wall came back over them.
Following the launch of GOES-R in 2016, it was GOES-S in 2018, then GOES-T in 2022. At Lockheed Martin in Littleton, Colorado, the 4th and final satellite of this generation, called GOES-U, is nearly finished, set to launch in April 2024.
The most of the plan work right now done, I would say mid-October of this year.
Iowa native Matt Kettering is the GOES Atlo mechanical manager at Lockheed.
You just kind of guide us through the different platforms and things that are happening on the satellite.
Top of the vehicle, the nadir side of the vehicle. The upper one is our advanced baseline imager. That gives you about 65% of all the data produced by GOES. Right below it, with the silver cap on it, that's the Lockheed Martin produced geostationary lightning mapper, the first lightning mapper that's actually in geostationary orbit.
It's the county line.
For forecasters using the data daily, the cost is worth the lives it protects.
We have plenty of use in case studies to prove, how vital and how useful that data is.
Well, a large brush fire started Monday in a Los Angeles suburb after a tow truck caught fire on the side of a freeway. The fire quickly spread to 25 acres. A water-dropping aircraft had to be used to help put out these flames. There were no reports of any injuries or any structures being damaged. It serves as a good reminder that wildfires can start at any time, regardless of the weather. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll talk with an expert about how AI is being used to create more accurate weather forecasts. And we head to Texas for a look at how the extreme heat is impacting local wildlife.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti. Steve, look at the Northeast. Most areas in the Northeast today are going to top out in the 80s to near 90 degrees. The areas in northern New England that have had flooding issues over the last couple of days, I'm happy to report we're going to see some sunshine return there, especially in Vermont, northern New York. Areas that have been dealing with that flooding will see brighter skies return. Now, notice temperatures throughout all of the Northeast will warm nicely back through the 80s to near 90. A nice summer day is on tap, and more should be expected on Wednesday. We're back near 90 degrees.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Temperatures rising through the 70s by 9 a.m. At noontime, we're into the 80s. And it looks like a lot of areas touching near 90 as we head into our Tuesday afternoon, dropping back down into the 70s and 80s toward evening. The good news here, drier air continues to rule the roost. It will be a warmer day, though, as fair weather high pressure remains our main weather maker. That's the scene here.
Here's a look at your forecast for today. It looks like we're going to continue to see those temperatures on the hot side of things across the southeast. 90 degrees in Birmingham, 88 in Pensacola, 91 in Jacksonville, Raleigh 90, 95 in West Palm, Tampa about 89 degrees. Looks like we'll see some dry conditions, plenty of sunshine across parts of the southeast, but definitely some Saharan dust and hazy conditions as we go through the day on Tuesday afternoon. But it looks like we are seeing chances for showers and thunderstorms as well late afternoon and evening.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A recent lakeside view from Montana's Tobacco Root Mountains. Still snow and ice there. This cool floating island reportedly more than a foot thick. Meanwhile, in Eufaula, Alabama, a lovely crisp blue sky, fluffy clouds, lush greenery around the lake, and an alligator in the foreground. Well, it looks like that swim will have to wait.
Want to see your weather photos and videos on TV? Click Chime In on this station's website to share.
Heavy rainfall can be hard to forecast, but researchers at Colorado State University have developed a tool using AI that is making forecasts more precise. Emily Gracie sat down with the lead scientist from the project to learn how it was created and what the difference between AI and machine learning is.
If you think of a Venn diagram or whatever, AI is sort of this big circle and then machine learning is a subset of that, that is focused on, training computers to learn information, roughly in the same way that our brains do. I mean, we never can replicate that exactly, of course, but that's kind of the idea.
So I'm curious about what you've created and what its capabilities are.
Heavy rain is really hard to forecast. Models aren't always great at forecasting it. There's also the issue of, a certain amount of rain doesn't mean the same thing in, depending on where you are, right? Like along the Gulf Coast in Florida, an inch or two of rain is like an everyday sort of occurrence. But in parts of the West, like where I am, an inch or two of rain is a big deal. And so you want to account for that somehow in the forecast too. So what we developed was a tool that basically uses information about how rare a rain event is for a given area, and then a history of numerical weather prediction forecasts with their strengths and weaknesses, and then those historical observations, and then feed all of that into the machine learning algorithm to try and develop a probability of excessive rainfall happening.
Interesting. So how accurate is it?
It depends. In one sense, we don't have anything else like it to sort of compare it to, and so it's a big advance in that way. We certainly have some excellent success stories where the system was, putting high probabilities multiple days in advance over the area where the heavy rain ended up occurring. But there's also a lot of days where where it's not getting it right or putting the highest probabilities in the wrong place. And so that's the kind of stuff we're still working on to try and make better.
And to hear more about AI, check out our podcast, Off the Radar. This week's episode explores the use of AI in different science fields. You can find Off the Radar anywhere you listen to your podcast. And dealing with high temperatures is tough for people and even tougher for some of the most vulnerable creatures in nature. Austin meteorologist Chicago Windler got a firsthand look at wildlife being raised and rehabbed to tolerate the heat.
On the heels of one of the hottest Junes ever on record for Central Texas, July is not far behind. And here at Austin Wildlife Rescue, the animals couldn't survive the heat without a little extra help. From baby birds.
She has a fractured jaw.
To injured turtles.
Lawnmower casualty.
4,000 orphaned, injured, and sick wild animals call the Corgan Center home.
Once an animal is debilitated, no matter what the temperature is, their chances for survival is next to zero.
Austin Wildlife Rescue is changing that statistic one animal at a time.
We have possums, we have squirrels, skunks, raccoons, songbirds of all types, birds of prey, and reptiles.
So how are you guys holding up?
Oh, it's brutal out here.
Operations Manager Jules Marin says July is their busiest month.
What we do is challenging on any day and then add in 100 degrees and hotter, and it just multiplies by 10.
It starts with babies like these possums.
They were in the pouch of a mom that was hit by a car.
And until their bodies can regulate temperature, they stay in incubators, then graduate to bins with heating pads inside. Next, they transition to a covered porch with fans to keep them cool.
We'll do a light spritz.
And finally, the animals are acclimated to the outdoors.
The possums and squirrels take about 3 months. These guys are about 6.
If you want to help wildlife get through this heat wave,
water is just such a life source for them.
It's as easy as putting out fresh water.
Something like what you would put under a planter works really well for some of your smaller ground-dwelling animals. And then for things like squirrels, birds, or taller animals, just putting water in a bird bath.
These barred owls lost their homes in the ice storm, and from extreme cold to now extreme heat, they're ready for release.
It's nice to get those guys in and then, get them back out into the wild where they belong.
East of Austin in Elgin, Texas, I'm Chicago Windler for the National Weather Desk.
And some wildlife is finding other ways to beat the heat. These raccoons hitched a ride with a couple spending some time out on Lake Champlain, Vermont. The couple tried to separate themselves from their curious castaways and were able to capture this video while heading back to shore. Neither the couple nor the raccoons were hurt, but officials are reminding the public to avoid contact with raccoons and to get immediate medical attention if you are scratched or bitten, since raccoons can actually carry rabies. In addition to the heat, several places have seen severe storms this week. That's leading to something called heat lightning, where lightning is seen, but there is no thunder, and it actually has nothing to do with heat. Meteorologist Marshall McPeak explains.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Marshall McPeak. We've had some storms recently that have involved what a lot of folks call heat lightning. Now, that's kind of a misnomer because it's not actually the heat that causes the lightning, but the heat does help cause some storms. So here's what's really happening. Let's say you've got some clear sky at your house, but about 15, 20 miles away, there's a convective storm. Now, let's talk about that convective storm first, because it's important to make the distinction. When we have clouds as far as the eye can see, just a cloud deck that's thick and you can't see an individual storm, it makes it difficult for this heat lightning to happen. You need clear sky where you are and a storm in the distance. Convective storms can tend to happen on their own, so you can actually see the individual storm. So when that's developing the lightning, you can see it from all the way out here. The house that's closer to the storm is still going to hear that lightning. It only takes about 5 seconds for the lightning to create the thunder and the thunder to travel about a mile. The thunder goes pretty fast, but only at the speed of sound. Of course, the lightning, speed of light. So the difference is, if you're close to the storm, you hear the thunder. But out here where it's clear, you're 10, 15 miles away, the sound attenuates. It dissipates with distance. So what happens then is you see the lightning, but you don't hear any thunder because you're too far away. Some of these storms you can see 40, 50, even 80 miles away if they're big enough. So you'll see the lightning but not hear the thunder. So that's what we call heat lightning. But when you see it happen, it's really just that you're too far away to hear the thunder.
And time now for a short break. But first, let's take in views of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. We do have a little bit of scattered rain out across the plains for the day today and even a little bit up towards Michigan. A lot of the Midwest staying dry today, but temperatures definitely on the warm side. That rain does expand, though, as we head into your Wednesday right across the central part of the Midwest and the Great Lakes, and that will continue kind of shifting its way down towards the Ohio Valley by the time that we get to your Thursday, with some scattered rain back across the plains and temperatures running close to normal.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. We're waking up a little bit too warm from South Texas all the way back up into Dallas. Cooler back up in Amarillo. Oklahoma's got a little bit of rain cool temperatures going on. A little bit of a system there will keep the rain showers going up for Dallas, back on over into Texarkana. Most of the rest of the region should stay dry, and it will be hot again. We're looking at triple digits moving across the region with heat advisories as well. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. We have extreme heat building up through the Southwest, impacting parts of Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, bringing up temperatures into triple-digit heat. So there's a danger if you don't have a place to cool down with some air conditioning. We're even going to be warming up later in the week for the Pacific Northwest as high pressure begins to build and rises up, pumping up into the Pacific Northwest. That's the scene from here.
Watching the National Weather Desk.
Well, we talked earlier about AI technology and weather forecasting, but AI is also being used to help fight wildfires. Muna Sadiq has that story.
CAL FIRE announced they're partnering with UC San Diego's Alert California program to use AI or artificial intelligence. They say it's going to play a huge role in catching fires early. Little blue arrows represent more than 1,000 cameras positioned throughout the state. They say it's basically a round-the-clock surveillance system that helps them monitor fires even in remote areas. New AI technology will help scan for any abnormalities within the camera feed. If it catches anything like smoke, for example, it'll notify first responders.
They can go to the AI, and the AI says, I believe this is smoke, and these 8 cameras can see it based on our digital elevation model. Go look at these cameras, see if you can confirm that that's ignition. What we're trying to do is limit the noise in the emergency command center so that these firefighters can focus on ignition. They can get there quickly, and they can fight fire in the incipient phase.
And thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, we'll look at the role weather is playing in the increase in West Nile virus right here in the U.S. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Tuesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.